On today's Our Region's Business Online Extra, more than $730,000 are on the way to help Black-led churches and other nonprofits in Pittsburgh that have been facing and responding to hardships from COVID-19. They represent grants from the POISE Foundation's Critical Community Needs Fund. Mark Lewis is president and CEO of POISE, and he's back with us. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, Mark, when we last saw you, you were just in the beginning of getting this set up to respond to everything that's been going on in the community as a result of COVID-19. First off, what are you seeing out there? What's the need look like right now?
Some of the need that we saw at the very beginning is beginning to diminish a little bit. I think now the shift is, what does the summer look like? What do we do with our children as parents have to go back to work and summer camps are closed and things of that nature, as well as, especially within the African-American community, we've seen that jobs were lost and those jobs are not coming back quite as fast as we would expect or would hope. And so now it's trying to focus on the reopening piece and how does the job impact what's happening within our community.
How has all the protests and the response to the George Floyd killing affected the space you're operating in and the organizations you're trying to work through and support?
Sure. I think what's interesting is the fact that before COVID and even with the events that we've seen with, again, certain Black lives being lost, a lot of the issues that exist in our community existed before that. And so I think these events are really heightening, some of the disparities and some of the needs that are in the community. So I don't think we've had a big shift as far as what we see the needs are or what we see or where the funding needs to go. I think we've seen a heightened awareness. So we've had, again, people from across, various spectrums saying, how can we help? Seeing what happened to George Floyd and saying, that's a tipping point. So how can we support and how can we help the community and how can we find organizations like a POISE Foundation, again, where we can give money and then you all are working in the community to figure out where best to support it. I will mention just real quick, when the events with Antoine Rose took place, we did create a Human Equity and Justice Fund. And so that was really to respond to a lot of what we saw with the protests and people needing resources and support. And so as we kind of wind down or finish the grant making from the Critical Community Needs Fund, that will be one of the funds we're focused on, and just how do we support advocacy and how do we support these movements that are taking place now.
You mentioned Antoine Rose, and clearly these incidents have been going on far longer than any person would like to think about. Do you feel like this time is different in some ways from all the times before?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not, obviously not the only person that said this, but I think you have a broad spectrum of voices now that are coming out against this type of treatment. Typically, it's been the Black community saying, hey, we're being, treated unfairly. We know equity and justice is not being portrayed in a lot of these different events. Now we're seeing people from every race, every community coming out and saying something has to change. And so as you will talk to people who are involved in racial equity and talk about racism a lot, it's not Black people who are going to change that dynamic. And so it has to be the white community coming in and those who have some power coming and say, we want something to change. And I think that's the thing we're seeing different here today is that people from, not just people on the ground, but you're seeing corporations and CEOs as well saying, how do we support change in our community? So hopefully, and I think with additional dialogue, we will see some level of change take place.
So Mark Lewis from the POISE Foundation, congratulations on the good work and great to talk with you.
Thanks again for having me, Bill.
And I'm Bill Flanagan, and that's today's Online Extra.